Hi, I'm Shanna. If you're new to the channel, I'm a Canadian medical student. Every Wednesday, I release short videos with interviews with different medical students, such as today, advice for pre-meds or new medical students, day in the life vlog. Subscribe to not miss the variety of amazing medical students that I will be talking about. So today, I'm super happy to be introducing my classmate, Brandon. Brandon and I are in the same small group together, so we know each other quite well. Brandon has an interest in pathology and alongside medicine is pursuing a semi-professional career in classical music composition. I thought this was really unique, and he will have a lot of interesting things to share about is how you balance this semi-professional career in music composition with medicine. I was curious, like, what an average week in your life looks like, trying to fit both of them into your life, say during a school week or something.
Yeah, that's a tough question. Um, we talked a bit about this beforehand, but kind of the idea of just of being able to realize what balance means for you, I think, is the important aspect. So obviously, you don't want to be in a situation where you work really hard and then you sort of lose touch with yourself, lose touch with your health, which is a big one that everybody learns in med school. And lose touch with your relationships with people. What it means is that during the first 2 years, that is book learning, right? You do some stuff clinically, but most of it is you spend time in lectures. And so your schedule's pretty predictable in a lot of ways. My typical day would be I go to lectures in the morning and I spend some time in the lectures in the afternoon. And then I follow up on things that I didn't really understand in lecture or in clinical experiences, and kind of take care of that homework. And then usually about 8 or 9 p.m., I put everything from med school away. I take out my staff paper or whatever I'm working on musically at the time, and I focus on that for a couple hours, And obviously, it doesn't always work out that way. Sometimes during exam time, it doesn't work at all. Sometimes we get a free morning, and we actually didn't know we get a free morning from med school. And so there is a kind of a flexibility that has to happen there. But, I do have sorts of guidelines maybe in terms of, okay, I sort of want to get this musical project done within the next 4 months. Or with medicine, I want to do this research project, and kind of the timeline looks roughly like this. And so you're kind of balancing your short-term planning day by day, also with kind of mid-range, month by month, and then obviously your big, long trajectory of what residency do you want to do, what sort of career do you want to have in medicine, which is a much bigger topic.
The takeaway tip I'm getting is that you had a kind of a timeline that you generally follow in a day. So like before 8 to 8 is medicine time. That's study time. That's research time. But after that, this is my other side of me, and this is dedicated. And it sounds like every day you try to, ideally, if there's not other things going on, to carve out at least a couple hours to keep moving on the other aspect of your life.
That's exactly right. Yeah. Now, there's some exceptions to that, right? Like if you're obviously, if you have, some family situation that you have to tend to, then that's going to change things. If you get an opportunity in something, some major research presentation nationally or something like that, that might change how you approach things. If you're feeling really sick because you haven't been eating well or haven't been exercising enough, that'll also change things.
How about for weekends? How do you decide to divide your time between the two?
It really depends on the weekend. I do have a group of young artists and musicians that I talk to on a regular basis, and so we kind of discuss our projects for the week then, and we hold each other accountable for getting some work done in that way, which I think is good for any field, really. And so I spend some time meeting with them, usually on a Saturday. And then the rest of the time kind of just comes down to what the situation is in general. If we've gone through a heavy week in medicine, then I'll probably be studying more. If it's not so heavy a week in medicine, then I might be either doing some research or I might be composing. And, it kind of comes down to what your long-term goals are, and then just breaking that down into a routine that works for you. So there's no clear answer as to, you know, what I do every weekend, because it does change a bit.
Mm-hmm. I think that would be what most medical students say, that the weekdays are probably more structured and you find your routine that you settle to, which is different for everyone. But the weekends are probably the biggest variable thing in most people's lives, because things change and depends on the weather and what's going on. Yeah, I was curious how, if you have some, I guess we're not there yet, but if you have some ideas on how you want to keep incorporating medicine as we move forward in clerkship or residency. Music.
You meant music. Okay. Yeah. You know, my pattern of working things out is sort of pretty, as I mentioned, pretty static, in the sense that I always try to find some amount of time to do music in a day. And so I think one thing that I've been looking into is sort of how I can balance formal education in both going forward, which is always a difficult issue because it's always sort of outside of the box of having, you know, one career. And so I've been looking into that, and sometimes there's the possibility that it might involve relocating after my medical undergrad. But you get more choice as a medical student, I think, in fourth year, when you get to take electives on the things that interest you. And, you know, and those aren't always at your home site. They may be in a different province or in a different country. And so you get to kind of choose. It's sort of one of those, you know, those old books before video games were a significant thing, where you get to choose what happens when you make it to page 52. And it says, if you want to, you know, attack the alligator, then go to page 74. If you want to back off and play it safe, then go to page, you know, 78 or something like that. That's kind of what it looks like. You only have a certain number of choices, but you still get a choice. And so for me, I think the long term is that obviously I try to create at least 2 to 3 pieces a year. And I try to, you know, do some research. And if it results in a publication, that's usually even better. But those broad strokes are in place, and then the rest of it kind of is to be determined, you know, when we find out what is expected of us during clerkship and what's expected of us during residency.
So you set your overarching, you know, long-term goals, your year goals, and then you leave the micro things to just seeing how they go. Yeah.
And one thing I could add to that too is a lot of this depends on your values, right? So what is it that's important to you? What is it that you absolutely don't want to make it to 90 and realize that you haven't done? I think that's a big thing in terms of guiding what your priorities are as well.
Would you say yours are?
I have several, but I think the two at this particular point, I'm in my mid-20s. So at this particular point, my 2 main goals are, you know, finding a career that I love in medicine and working in the arts to the best of my ability. And that includes collaborating with a lot of really great musicians that I've had the privilege of collaborating with over the years.
Was on that one actually avoiding the burnout of balancing the two lives?
Yeah, that's a bit of a different question, because burnout, I think just like balance means different things for different people, burnout also means different things for different people, right? So burnout, at least in my mind, is sort of a failure to achieve the balance that you want to achieve in your life, whether it's work-life balance, family-career balance, artistic versus practical balance, whatever. And any of those things kind of going out of balance can result in burnout. And so I think how you avoid burnout, at least how I avoid it, sort of is to realize what the principles are that are important to me and then act according to those. But there are certain days also where I'll just feel completely overloaded and really tired and not up for cooking and not up for doing any music or any medicine. And as long as I can find a plan to catch up with the stuff that I've missed, then I think it's important that you take that time for you, because you won't function anyway when you're burnt out, right? So, and just realizing also that burnout tends to be a temporary state unless it's not addressed.
I think people can easily see, oh, look at Brandon. He has his all the medicine together. He has these amazing competitions that he's winning with music. But everyone, even if it looks like on the outside everything's perfect, there are still days that you're tired and you don't function super productively. Ideally, most times if you're setting a normal achievable goal, so let's say 2 to 3 compositions for you, or like a realistic number, and you have all these accountability in place, you're going to be doing pretty well 80% of the time. But 20% of the time there'll be days where you're a little bit slower and not perfectly on the ball. So I think that's the big takeaway. Yeah.
How you deal with those sort of situations where you do temporarily burn out, which does happen to me every once in a while, is that you have a network of people that support you, that can kind of, there's a saying where they say you're a best friend. The definition of a best friend is somebody who can sing your song back to you when you've forgotten the words, right? And I kind of like that idea. So that you have a support network in medicine, you have a support network in music. When you have a bad day at the office, or you've struggled trying to write something and you just can't figure out what you're doing, which happens a lot in music, that you have people to support you and encourage you and tell you to take a break sometimes, or conversely tell you to really get back at it and get working again.
I'm curious, because you're in a kind of a unique balance of music and medicine. Do you have anyone who's exactly doing that exact journey, or is it okay that no one is doing the exact same thing you are doing?
Oh boy, yeah, that's interesting. So one of the difficult things about what I'm doing, in a sense, is that there's no single role model, or few single role models for me to really model my life on, right? So what is my career going to look like in 10 years? It's really hard to say, because I don't know that many people who are leading their lives exactly as I want to lead it. There are some people who are physician composers. It does happen. It's not common. I know one in Germany and one locally, and I've heard about others as well. And it's interesting because the other thing is I know several performer physicians as well, and they often tend to be very high-level performers on violin or piano, and they started playing their instrument when they were really young and functionally had a career in music before they pursued medicine, right? I've spent some time with some of these people, and the thing that's interesting with them is sort of like what I'm saying here. They don't always have clear answers, and that I think that's mainly because even if you have similar fields, that doesn't mean you're the same person. It doesn't mean that you have the same life situation, but they can mentor you in terms of their experiences and what's allowed them to get to where they are. So I think the short answer is no. I don't have anybody I don't know anybody who leads their life exactly as I want to lead mine. But on the other hand, can you really say that that's true for anyone? Right? So everybody has a different background, and many people have different careers, or they have careers where they subspecialize in certain things.
Yeah.
It is a bit difficult, to come to terms with that sort of uncertainty, because you feel like you're in a boat in the ocean, and you don't see any land, and you don't know exactly what the future can hold for you. But I think one thing that you can definitely do is, if you expand your network and you talk to a lot of different people with different life experiences, then that helps. If anything, it just sort of calms you down. But also they often have useful practical career advice as well. So in short, nobody, but keep expanding your network, and knowing people can never be, it can never backfire on you, really.
And then maybe in 10 years, you'll be the mentor that someone else looks up to or reaches out to learn how to balance music competition.
I hope so. I mean, like I said, it's very difficult to give advice on that kind of stuff, but
I agree. Even for me, I would say, I think it's a bit easier for me because I think balancing research and medicine is much more common. But I take bits of that. So I take the field that I'm interested in and someone who's balancing research. But I also follow a lot of female physicians who are figuring out how they show how to fit their work life and their family life.
Of course. Yeah.
And they're not doing the exact thing I'm doing, but I think, as you said, I'm going to take bits from each person and fuse my own way, and then also add my own flair, because, as you said, we're all different people, and my exact fit and balance is not going to be the same. But yeah, that's it. Thank you so much, Brandon, for taking the time to chat.
I say thanks a lot also for having me on your channel, and it looks like you're doing some pretty cool stuff.
Thanks, everyone. Bye. Subscribe to the channel. Like this video if you liked it.
Bye, folks.